I'm Patrick Pacheco. Coming up on Theater, All the Moving Parts, we talk about the tricks of the trade with the creative team of the acclaimed and enchanting Broadway musical Water for Elephants. And then a trio of theater experts retrace the creation of Sally Bowles and the musical Cabaret from Nazi Germany to present day. Hello, I'm Patrick Pacheco. Welcome to Theater, All the Moving Parts. Who's that elephant in the room? Rosie, the star of the acclaimed new musical, Water for Elephants. And on hand to talk about the show are writer Rick Ellis, director Jessica Stone, and Dan Wexler of the musical collective Pigpen Theater Company. In the second half, we retrace the fabulous and enduring history of Cabaret with our panel of theater experts. Juan Ramirez, chief critic for Theaterly, Ruthie Fierberg, executive editor of Broadway News, and actor and writer Eric Ulloa. Welcome, Dan. Welcome, Jessica, to Theater, All the Moving Parts. And welcome back, Rick, to Theater, All the Moving Parts. You're an old hand by now.
I'm an old ham?
Hand.
Oh, hand. Thank you, Patrick.
Congratulations to all of you on an epic achievement. It is a goosebump-raising event.
See Benzini Brothers Circus for a one night only run. Ain't it so? The road don't make it so. The road don't make you young. Ain't it so? The road don't make you young. Live a life worth living when they say it can't be done. Ain't it so? The road don't make it so.
And we probably should say that Water for Elephants is a musical based on the Sarah Gruen novel that was made into a film with Reese Witherspoon and Robert Pattinson. And it's set in Depression-era America and is about Jacob Jankowski, a young man who loses everything, hops a circus train and discovers a group of fellow nomads, among them Marlena, a beautiful equestrian with whom he falls in love, and August, the circus master, who is alternately charming and also violently jealous. Oh, and there is an elephant in the room, the beloved.
Well done. Well done.
The beloved Rosie. Rick, when Peter Schneider brought the book to you, what made you think, yeah, this sings?
It's got really, really big themes. It's also very emotional in its core, about people learning to care for other people and learning to care for animals. It takes place in an exotic environment, a circus and a circus train. It takes place in 1931, the bulk of the story, when all different kinds of musical styles were roiling in our culture and big emotional, social, political upheaval was happening in the country. Big, big themes. And those usually make for great musicals.
And you said that you would do it, but you would only do it with Pigpen Theater Company. Why?
To know them is to admire them. And I had the great good fortune of seeing their original piece, The Old Man and the Old Moon, down in Washington Square in the bottom of Judson Church. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It was just about after Peter and the Starcatcher opened, which was kind of a very do-it-yourself story theater kind of experience. And there were these 7 guys kind of doing their version of that type of theater too, the kind that I was really brought up on and the kind of theater that I really, really love, where lots and lots of details are left for the audience to fill in with their imaginations and making things out of nothing and not using settings as decorative pieces, but really as in many, many different ways for many, many different purposes. And then, of course, there was the music. They wrote it, they performed it, and it was kind of, it blew my hair back.
Dan, you're one of 7 in a collective. Was it difficult to come to consensus to musicalize?
No, not at all. I think at the time, we were steeped in reading possible fodder for adaptation. So we were reading lots of books that, all had kind of varying degrees of suitability, but this one I had already read. So when Rick came to us with it, I immediately said this would make for a great musical and we would be great for it. For all the reasons that Rick said, it has this, I think the essential quality of our company and our music is resourcefulness, and that is baked into the story and the themes, and we just imagined the world unfolding musically immediately after reading it.
Jessica, you did a brilliant job in your directorial debut with Kimberly Akimbo. It won the Tony Award for Best Musical. You were nominated for Best Director. That was an intimate story, about a small group of people. This is so epic and so wide. Were you intimidated by marrying circus arts, puppetry, and this narrative of this love story at its heart?
Yes and no. What's funny is the offer for Kimberly and the offer for Elephants happened the same month 6 years ago. And when Jen Costello and Peter Schneider, our producers, when they came to me with this idea, they said, read the book. Here's the first draft of Act 1 of the adaptation, and let's talk about it. And so I never imagined, after I read the book, I thought, well, there's an elephant and a stampede and a train and I've been directing a long time all over the country, but I haven't done anything with this of this scale. So as the journey began, I already had some ideas about how circus was going to play a part and what the rules were. But it was a very very inspiring, very informative journey, because I had never worked, obviously, in the world of circus before, or puppetry, or any of it. So it was definitely a crash course in many different forms of storytelling.
Rick, you mentioned the do-it-yourself quality that also Pigpen had. Was there some central organizing principle that you established early on in terms of that would then sort of determine what the rules were?
With Water for Elephants, the organizing principle was given us by Sarah Gruen, which is that it's a memory story. Because it's a memory play, it also means that you can have fragmented physical ideas as well as fragmented emotional ideas. So you don't have to see an entire elephant to begin with. You don't have to see an entire menagerie full of animals. You see a representation of it, and the audience fills in the blank.
We should say that it's a memory play because there is an older version of young Jacob, in Old Jacob, played by Greg Edelman, who is looking back at a very crucial and moral moment in his lifetime. Let's talk specifically, say, about where it is so beautifully married, let's say at the beginning of The Road Don't Make You Young.
There's only one road in this God-forsaken life. It winds before it plummets from a God-forsaken height. But you're gonna have to walk it, so you might as well have fun. Spend that dollar in your pocket while there's holler in your lungs. See Benzini Brothers Circus for a one-night only run. Ain't it so?
So you knew that you had Jacob coming into the circus. He's a neophyte. He's getting used to this world of circus performers. And you had a song that you had to write. You had a story to tell.
Our circus show wasn't going to start with a circus act. It was going to start with a memory of the day that Jacob Jankowski met the circus. And it was going to have circus bleed into it in this kind of beautiful way where, he can't be sure if it was actually something that happened, that the roustabouts climbed this 30-foot pole and then spun around and jumped off of it or slid down it or, juggled or whatever it is. But that was the emotional experience. That memory collides.
And seamless is the best word to use. And a number of reviews mention just how seamlessly you combine all these elements. It must have been a big jigsaw puzzle for you. How did you do it?
It was really important that his most important memories and his most vibrant memories were seen through the lens of a circus vocabulary. So, memory plays a big part. In terms of Road Don't Make You Young, one of the most gratifying things for me on this show is because I was lucky enough to come in so early, I was also in the writer's room. And so it really does feel like the world building was very thorough, detailed, and you had 9 people on board with what we cared about. And the same with Shana Carroll, our circus designer. Through the pandemic, she and I would have these workshops through Zoom and look at, all right, we want it to feel like work here. The grand spec is performance. Circus, it's traditional circus. But Road, it is that thing. He remembers it feeling really fun. And did someone actually do a cartwheel and fly through the air? It felt like it, even if it wasn't the case. But a lot of the circus elements and the choreography in Road is work-like.
By Jesse Robb, we should say.
Jesse Robb,
Shana
exactly.
Carroll, who
Shana
came
Carroll.
from a circus arts background,
Yeah.
working with Jesse Robb, to put this piece together. We are so used to being spoon-fed, and what this musical does so beautifully is that you put a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the audience. And it starts, to some extent, yes, with The Road to Make You Young, but also Easy, which is, of course, the moment when we meet, when young Jacob comes into this room. Marlena, played by Isabel McCullough, is cradling a hurt horse. When you came to writing that, Rick, and you were writing it in terms of fragmented memory, how did you write it that then led to the puppetry that led to the music, Easy?
It is sort of the sui generis moment of Water for Elephants, because I think it's the very, very first thing that we talked about musically. What's great about Pigpen is they can understand all the styles from 1931, but they are young people writing now for the theater. And I came to the guys and I said, here's how we should really meet this woman. We should meet her as this voice representing her, and the sound of percussion representing the horse that she's singing to. So we can demonstrate that she's got this horse whisperer vibe, and the horse doesn't need to be represented in any way other than through the percussion.
Easy now. Easy now. Just calm down, easy. You're here with me, easy. And I'm not leaving. Easy now.
And you have Grant Gustin obviously meeting Marlena for the first time and totally falling in love with her as well. And the conversations that you had, Jessica, with Shana about pulling together this extraordinary moment. And I gather that Easy had been done by this time. It had been written.
Yeah, the song existed.
The song existed. So tell us about that
It was
construction.
It was an interesting little challenge because I went to Montreal to work with Shana to just look at vocabulary and how different physical expression, specifically circus physical expression, could be used. And I knew that we were going to, I hadn't cracked the puppetry code yet, but I knew that one of the most important elements of Easy is we have to also learn about Marlena. It's not just looking at an injured horse. We're learning that she has the ability to tame beasts, but to calm. She has the ability to feel somebody's pain and to ease somebody's pain. So I wanted to learn about her, and that's one of the things that Jacob Jankowski, when he's watching and he falls in love with her, he's falling in love with her skill and her gift. Not just that she's pretty in a pretty dress, like she's really gifted. So we were talking about what circus acts. I wanted our animals to have some circus influence. So, for instance, the dog is sleight of hand. The lion is actually an acrobat who does part of a lion dance, the lion dance in the circus. And Shana said, equestrian stuff like aerialist feels like the right fit for that.
I should say that the puppet design is by Ray Wetmore, J.R. Goodman, and Camille Labar. You mentioned the fact that she can calm this horse that's in pain. One of the great things about your book, Rick, is that there is the resonance and the parallel that she's also calming her husband. In Easy, that comes back.
Isabel McCalla, or Izzy as she is known, her essential quality is very much like that too. She's very, very gifted, and she feels. And her generosity of spirit is so palpable. It's one of those wonderful, lucky moments where the essential quality of the actor and the essential quality of the character are merged, and the audience is the beneficiary of all of that.
One of the most difficult is August, played by Paul Alexander Nolan. It is so impossible to write someone who is mentally ill on some level and yet has to be charming and then switch. Rick, how did you write August? How did you...
None of us wanted to have a mustache-twirling villain guy because it's unfair to the character of Marlena to be saddled with someone who's so obviously horrible. Then it says something about her, and we didn't want that to be said about her. We wanted to. It's sort of a neat trick, We have words for it now, bipolar and vocabulary like that. But in 1931. There wasn't a vocabulary for that. There was just, well, he's mercurial, or he has these moments sometimes where his partner would be almost making apologies for it to begin with until it starts to overtake him. And it's hard to find a great actor who's going to say, okay, I'm just going to play a lunatic. Paul is this, sort of the essence of, also, you're very, very lucky to have an actor whose essential quality is danger. You never really know what he's going to do. And that means that everyone's always leaning forward and paying very, very close attention. You really have to listen to Paul. And that's great for the other actors, and it's great for the other characters to have to lean forward and always be clocking August. What is he going to do? Because he's capable of doing anything. And Paul really knows how to do it. And tomorrow he'll do it differently, and the day after that he'll do it differently, and it's kind of a thrill to watch.
Dan, Pigpen had to write two major numbers for him. One in the first act, lies. What's the name of the?
Lion's Got No Teeth.
Lion's Got No Teeth, and the second act, You're Nothing.
You've got nothing.
You've got nothing.
Have you seen our hippopotamus? The lion has got no teeth. All the rubes think that she's marvelous. The lion has got no teeth. Been a month now since she died, swimming in a tank of formaldehyde. Oh no, you gotta give up.
Was that out of the box for Pigpen?
Yeah, no. We knew early on that the style that we wanted to write August in was going to have to stand apart from a lot of the other songs in the show, because we wanted to, take his ringmaster energy and present a musical equivalent. So immediately we thought of the band leader. Luckily enough, there were just a ton of incredible showman band leaders making music at the time that this story was set. So I think the person we spent the most time listening to and looking at was Cab Calloway.
Live it, and the jive is right. Live it, oh, tonight's the night.
This kind of playful lyricism and the fun that he has with words and motion, I think, is what we wanted to capture for August. Because August is the type of person that when he gets emotional, when he gets angrier, he actually gets sharper he gets meaner, but he gets more and more cutting. So in Lions Got No Teeth, which is a song where he's kind of trying to both seduce Jacob into the circus, but also kind of rebuff him for standing up to him in their first encounter. It was about creating a imagined world that he could sort of draw on and command with this song that just has a lot of words in it. And then we had a lot more trouble with the second act song. We had a version that was more focused on his hate for Jacob at one point. And what we found out was it just wasn't dramatically satisfying. When we came back for Broadway, I think we knew that we needed to write something that really acted as the sort of climax of this triangle that forms in the first scene between Jacob and Marlena and August. And that made the songwriting a lot easier because, we knew what the scene was.
One of the exciting things about the show is how many people are making their Broadway debuts?
17.
17 people. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary. Is Grant Gustin among
one
the
of them.
17? So talk a little bit about young Jacob and what he brings to the musical and why you chose him.
Grant Gustin is, he was lucky enough to head into the land of TV at a young age, but he started in the theater. So this does not remotely feel like casting to sort of get the Flash in our musical. That was not the point. He is a beautiful singer. He's a beautiful actor, and is able to. He's able to access what is vulnerable and what is brave about our protagonist. He's also able to plumb the depths of shock and pain and trauma, because this character's lost his parents, it's the depression, and he just goes running. He's in a state of shock when we meet him and slowly opens up to the world again.
I believe that there's something, maybe somewhere, a way to be. Maybe it's a person, not a place.
Say what you mean.
When I first saw you, I felt wild, 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 wild.
We feel very, very lucky to have him at the center of our story.
We have to wrap up, but we should also say that you have a terrific supporting cast in Sarah Gettelfinger and Stan Brown and Joe DePaul and Marissa
Rosen. Wade
Rosen.
McCollum.
Wade McCollum as well. For the final question, I just want to ask you, it's an unfair question, I know, but what is your favorite moment in the show? Rick?
Peter asked me to do this at a moment when I had just been through a very, very bad personal time. The loss of my husband, which was very, very hard for him and very, very hard for me. And I am the survivor of that. And along comes this story about a guy who, as a young man, loses everything and purely accidentally jumps on a train. It happens to be a circus train, and that changes his life, changes the trajectory of his life. And that story is being told by a man who, once again, the same guy, many, many years later, 50 years later, has lost everything again and finds himself at a circus again. And the idea of trying to figure out how, as a survivor, you put one foot in front of the other is very meaningful to me because it's the thing that I struggle with every day of my life. And so it was important to me that our last scene, which is the man saying, I'm sorry that I hate that she's gone, but I'm glad she went first because being the survivor stinks, is for me a chance for me to talk to the audience directly and say, if you've been through this, I understand, we understand in this story, and so this is for you. And so that I guess would be the most meaningful moment for me.
Jessica?
Just when I'm sitting in the theater, one of the things I love most is when we assemble the train for the first time, and You know, it's my favorite song in the show, Anywhere, or it's our opening song.
This train is bound for anywhere, I'm going there too. Don't care much where we end up, as long as it's new and free, with everything behind me.
It's so exciting, and it's the thing that I heard and first when they sent me the material, and I thought, oh, I really like that. And I just look at this stage full of beautiful people, and we worked so hard on that arrangement at the end, and they just sound amazing, and they're singing their faces off, and I'm just looking at that company of people on that train singing about their life, and it feels like the circus, and it feels like theater, and it feels like us, and so I think that's probably my favorite moment.
Dan?
Well, I mean, you've picked great ones. There's so many, but I think just for sheer encapsulation of all of the different art forms and talents that go into this show, there is a dream sequence in Act 2, also an amazing thing that Jess brought to us in like the first day that we talked to her. She said, there should be a dream ballet. And we were like from Oklahoma? And she's like, yes. And we were like, okay.
But with Cerceaux.
Cirque. Right, exactly. But it's such a strange, unorthodox kind of, 11 o'clock number, if you want to call it that, because it's a dream. And so we're sort of at our most free to play with imagery and sound and create something unique. And there's a moment at the climax of it where our lead, Grant Gustin, simultaneously is singing like the biggest part of the song and also hanging off of a trapeze, 25 feet in the air. And the entire company is singing with him. And there's something just so like intensely climactic about it that ever since the first time I saw it, I was just like, whoa, we have a show.
What I love about the show is that not only that you have a cohesive company in moments like what you just described, Dan, but also the audience. You cohere the audience in responding with awe to this show. And that's exciting as well. We're one. So I think you make people want to run off to the circus, and you also make them want to run to the Imperial Theater to see Water for Elephants.
Nicely done. Very nicely done.
So congratulations to you all, and here we go.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. We're taking a short break. When we return, I'm joined by Juan Ramirez, Chief Critic of Theaterly, Ruthie Thierberg, Executive Editor of Broadway News, and actor, writer Eric Ulloa. We discuss the magnetic pull of the musical classic Cabaret, which has drawn a galaxy of stars as part of its legacy, including Liza Minnelli, Alan Cumming, Natasha Richardson, Emma Stone, and now Eddie Redmayne. We are back. I'm Patrick Pacheco. I'm now joined by Juan Ramirez, Chief Critic for Theaterly, Ruthie Thierberg, Executive Editor, Broadway News, and Eric Ulloa, a triple threat as actor, playwright, and screenwriter, to delve into the history of Cabaret, one of the greatest musicals ever written. Welcome, Juan and Ruthie, back to Theater All the Moving Parts. And Eric, it's good to be with you.
Good to be with you.
We should, before we dig in, we should say that Cabaret is about an American writer who arrives in Berlin just as the Nazis are gaining power. He becomes entranced by Sally Bowles, a young entertainer who sings in a dive called the Kit Kat Club, which has a flamboyant MC who presides over its exuberant decadence. I want each of us to give a timeline of Cabaret, and I'll start by saying that it began as a novella entitled Sally Bowles by the British writer Christopher Isherwood, published in 1937 about his expat adventures in Berlin. Sally Bowles then made her first appearance on the Broadway stage in 1951 in a drama, I Am a Camera, by John Van Druten, starring Julie Harris, which was then made into a 1955 film. Then in 1966, what happened to Sally, Juan?
Sally was played by Jill Hayworth in the musical with music by Kander and Ebb that opened at the Broadhurst Theater with startling staging by Hal Prince. And Joel Grey took over the part of the MC, or rather embodied the MC in that one. Production was a hit. And then in 1972, Liza Minnelli took on the role of Sally. Joel Grey continued on. And the character of Cliff, the Isherwood character, stand-in, was turned to Brian, a British writer.
We should add that Joe Masteroff wrote the brilliant book for Cabaret.
And then, well, once you put things on the big screen, everybody wants to see it on stage again. So after it won all those Oscars, then we got a revival in 1987. Hal Prince directed again, Ron Field choreographed again, Joel Grey came back as the MC again, and this time we had Allison Reed as Sally Bowles, and Greg Edelman, who is back on Broadway as Cliff Bradshaw. Not too long after that, it wasn't quite 20 years, it was only about 10, when we got the 1998 revival, which came from co-directors Sam Mendes and Rob Marshall. They had done a production in London at the Dunbar Warehouse. That was very immersive in a Kit Kat club. The 1998 revival was at the Henry Miller Theater that they turned into a club. It's now the Stephen Sondheim Theater. It eventually moved to Studio 54, which is where they came back again. In 2014, we had another repeat. Sam Mendes and Rob Marshall did their production again, similar to how Hal Prince did his production again. This time, of course, I should have mentioned, Alan Cumming was the MC in the 98 production. He reprised his role as the MC in the 2014 production. And Natasha Richardson was our Sally Bowles in 98. Michelle Williams was our Sally Bowles in 2014. It's an incredible legacy of directors and actors continuing to re-embody Cabaret.
And Michelle Williams, and then
Emma Stone replaced her. Yes.
Who they wanted in the first place, I think, before even Michelle.
Yeah, well, you know, I saw Michelle. I thought she was pretty fantastic. People went back and saw Emma. She got great reviews. So, like, you can't really lose to the character like Sally Bowles.
Eric, bring us up to date.
Well, we are now having this new revival of Cabaret, and it comes to us from London. It's a brand new revival. It takes, I think, the immersive nature of the last one even further. In fact, I know outside the August Wilson, you basically just see the word Kit Kat Club, and you are brought in through a whole different entrance. It's a whole new immersive experience where there's actually a prologue show. It's about 75 minutes or so, where you are literally kind of time warped back to the late 1920s, and you are thrown right into the mix of it pre-show. So by the time the show starts, you are fully in that world. Eddie Redmayne's bringing it over as the MC.
Atu Blankson Wood is playing Cliff, and Gail Rankin,
yes,
who is in the 2014 revival as Fräulein Kost, is now in this 2024 revival as Sally Bowles.
And directed by?
Legacy, directed by Rebecca Frecknell. It's her Broadway debut.
What makes it so durable? Juan?
I think, I mean, not to put too much weight on her, but Liza Minnelli's performance in the film is the definition of indelible. Like, it is such an iconic, again, that word, like, you know, it feels corny to say, but it is an iconic performance.
What good is sitting all alone in your room? Come, hear the music play.
And the second thing I would say is just, like most Kander and Ed musicals, it's just strong music, and we want to see that, you know.
Ruthie?
I think the durability of it predates that. I think that that's what, like, was the impetus for the movie, right? Is that the material itself, it's timeless and timely constantly, and the material has so much room for interpretation, both by directors and choreographers and the performers who embody these roles. And when you have that much room, everybody wants to put their take on it, right?
What's amazing, of course, is how well Sally Bowles has captured the imagination of the public. And I think we think of Cabaret, we think of Sally Bowles. Why do you think Sally is such a magnetic character?
Well, I feel like we all know a Sally Bowles. I mean, I feel like I went to college with like 10 Sally Bowles. When you go to musical theater, you know, Sally Bowles is, because you root for her so deeply and you want the best for her. she's so magnetic, but there is this tragedy in her that she also embodies, I think, too, the idea of someone who just wants to be loved, but can't quite get to the point of loving herself first to get beyond that.
Christopher Isherwood's Sally Bowles was Jean Ross, a 19-year-old British journalist and political activist.
Love that.
Who was an avowed communist and even a Stalinist later on in her. She at first told Christopher Isherwood, yes, you can use me, and then disavowed it because it went against her feminist ideals. Was she wrong, Ruthie?
So here's what I'll say. I think Sally Bowles is not Jean Ross. Like, I think that's where inspiration comes from. Perhaps her allure, her magnetism, the fact that she's a cabaret singer, that may have all come from Isherwood's experience of Jean. But he absolutely, and Joe Masteroff in his script of Sally, makes her a woman who is disengaged with the world. And if I were someone who were so politically forward and active and saw someone so apathetic in my stead, I think I'd probably be upset as well. I mean, one of her famous lines is like, politics, what has that to do with us?
But ultimately, Isherwood was a thrill-seeking gay man, and he loves a messy diva. I mean, I think it's part of the, I think that's part of the enduring appeal. I mean, you have Isherwood and his Sally Bowles, you have Truman Capote and his Swans, you have Andy Cohen and his Housewives. Like, there is sort of this, you know, eternal engagement between like a gay man and the messy women around him.
You brought up a good point because John Van Druten is gay, was gay. Obviously, Joe was gay. Cantor and Ebb are gay. So she is the creation, to a large extent, of gay men. What is it that Sally Bowles is a reflection of a certain gay ethos?
I mean, she's pretty fabulous. I mean, you know, as far as like, I mean, I think, and also in that era too, because when she was created, it was an era where our rights were not given at all. She lived for the day. She lived for the moment. Tomorrow was not guaranteed at all. I think she has, you know, she had appeal in that way. She was, again, like you said, that fabulous diva that we all love and we all kind of want to be.
In the early incarnations, Christopher Isherwood was a platonic friend. Later, it's Cliff who gets her pregnant, and without telling him, she has this abortion. How are we looking at the abortion these days?
Well, I think what's interesting about, you know, the revivals is that they put in the song, Maybe This Time. In the movie, it's kind of this hopeful song where she, and like you said, the Cliff character, now renamed Brian, are having this love affair, and she's thinking like, maybe this time I'll win, maybe this time someone will love me and stay with me.
Maybe this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this time he'll stay.
In the musical, it comes suggestively after this. Let's talk before you see a doctor, I think is along the lines of what's said. And then she sings Maybe This Time because she's been hurt again, because something has befallen her again. And the way she sings that song is a woman alone and in pain. And I think that is what we need to zoom in on in any mounting of cabaret.
It's got to happen. Happen sometime. Maybe this time.
What's brilliant and what I think humanizes this so well in the story and keeps it something that we still talk about and understand in the character is that they use the song Cabaret. She ultimately makes up her decision in that song. If you look at the actual original libretto, it says she steps forward, the club fades away. And she's now in this limbo, and that is when she's actually making the decision to leave and go and go get the abortion, pay off with the coat, and you know, and that's her decision. And what's fascinating is that there's not a lyric in the song Cabaret about abortion, this, and anything like that, but it says everything.
I just think it continues to become more and more pronounced as time goes on. Yeah.
And I think now we can look at it from an emotion, like how that affects the emotional relationship they have versus I think back then it was probably more of a shock. It was just like,
and that's
thing
part of
this
the
crazy woman
genius.
did.
Part of the genius of Joe Masteroff's book is to make it so personal, not a platonic friend, but somebody that has a stake in it, not as much as he would want. Of the three characters, the MC and Sally are often lauded and acclaimed. Cliff kind of gets the short end of the stick. Why do you suppose that is, Juan?
I mean, he's the Isherwood stand-in, and I think most sort of, I feel like the creator avatar is usually the least interesting person in any work. You know, like there's the Tina Fey character in 30 Rock is going to be the most sort of like, they're just a conduit for us to experience the world through them. He's very much, we're getting Berlin, his period of time there, who he meets, how he experiences it. He is a camera, he's recording it.
Yeah.
Right. You're a camera, you're the window, you're the vessel. And so you can't have two, by nature, you know, you have to be malleable and flexible enough.
As we get through more and more, he becomes gayer and gayer. Do you think of him now as gay or bisexual? Do you think of him as someone who's just gay and just is so enamored of Sally that he sleeps with her and gets her pregnant?
I think, you know, what's interesting is that like I was just listening to, why lie? To Alan Cummings' latest memoir, and he was saying that when he was first offered the role of MC, he was uninterested in it. But then going back to read Isherwood's actual diaries, the book Christopher and His Friends, he was like, oh, he was in Berlin because he was gay, and that's what he was looking for. So I think the reality of that has seeped further into the character, and I think it makes it more interesting.
What do you think?
There's a whole, it's fascinating because again, we try to put ourselves in not 2024 brain, go back and think about the time period and the character. And it's fascinating because I always think in his mind, like so many men back then were also trying to resist, you know, that because of constraints, family, whatever it may have been. And I know when they had, I believe it's a revival in the 80s, they added in Don't Go, that song.
That's right.
And that always is interesting to me.
Right.
And in fact, I love that song.
If you're running away, I can't stop you, I know. Don't go.
Running away, moving on.
Have you noticed I wear my heart on my sleeve? Don't leave.
To me, it's always felt like that song is him being like, you're my last chance at this. I have not had, and I know in the film it talks about a little bit like that, he has not been with women like that. And I feel like it's almost like this could be it. This could be his attempt at somewhat normalcy back in that time period for him. And so it weighs on him deeper in that character. You know, that's what I kind of always take of it.
It's arguable that the MC is one of the greatest roles ever written in musical theater history. Why? Why do you think these great actors always want to play him? It's just too meaty. Eddie Redmayne could probably have taken his choice of anything.
There's so much just to play with, you know? And you're within the narrative sort of, but not really. And you're sort of the way that the show most bleeds into the sort of meta way of like, we're all in the cabaret and we're all commenting on it and seeing it. And is it happening? Is it a stage scene that we're seeing, or is this an actual song? And he's the one who kind of gets to play with that.
Outside, it is winter, but here it is so hot. Every night we have the battle to keep the girls
From taking off all of their clothing. So don't go away. Who knows? Tonight we may lose the battle.
He's chief seducer and puppeteer. Like, who doesn't want to play that? Who doesn't, especially from an actor's perspective, like you want the audience in the palm of your hand. Well, now you get to manipulate the audience. You also get to manipulate the onstage players. I think, again, like the room that Joe Masteroff and Fred Ebb and John Kander and Hal Prince, as the original director, created within these characters, the room to play is what makes it so exciting to see someone's version of it. I will also say that there's no doubt that the role of the MC has gotten larger in these iterations, right? Like when you watch Joel Grey, you know, I guess in the film now, because you can't really see his onstage performance, it's definitively a featured role.
Yeah.
He was
Right?
fifth build. Joel
Like-
Grey was fifth build.
Right, fifth build. He won, the Tony was for featured actor, the Oscar was for supporting actor. Once we get to 1998 and Alan Cumming, he wins the lead actor.
Right.
Tony.
Good point. He's morally ambiguous in terms of what his relationship to the Nazis are.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, that's what I was gonna. That's why I think the MC is so exciting, because the MC, I know in the original too, they talk about that as he went on in the original production, there'd be more rouge and more makeup, and it was trying to hide the exhaustion, the cracks, the deterioration of the character, but also he was the embodiment of Berlin. And you were seeing the glamour you started out with, even in the tone, the revival, some of them, like the Alan one especially, he has a whole different tone by the end. He sounds like he's been beaten up through it. I just listened to the recent one with Eddie Redmayne, same thing. By the end, he completely drops his voice from this like high-pitched clown-like kind of, character, and it drops into this very, very ominous presence, like that's kind of warning of the impending doom. So there's not, what I love about Cabaret most of anything is that it doesn't say like, get it, the Nazi. It doesn't say it, but it hints at it.
What they did very cleverly is that the Nazi insignia only appears at the end of the first act when Ernst, a friend of Cliff's, takes off his coat and he's wearing a Nazi armband.
Will you watch my coat? And the briefcase? I'm sorry, since you did not wish to know my politics.
This is the good cause.
In our party, we be the builders of the new Germany.
Yeah, I've been reading your leader's book.
But enough politics. What does it matter? We are friends, close friends, buddies.
How has the Nazi insignia, the potency of the Nazi insignia, come across the decades to today?
I'll take the first part of that one. I think the potency today, look, like, not to be political, but theater is political. And it is, the original set of this held up a mirror to the audience. And today's revival, a literal mirror. And today's revival could not be more in perfect timing with the idea of the rise of anti-Semitism, Nazi, all these things that we thought we had tucked away into the recesses are back in many terrifying ways.
Is it a question of becoming inured to just how potent that symbol is to generations that are removed further and further from the Holocaust?
I just read something, I think there's a Holocaust museum somewhere in the US that just had to sort of rethink how they display Nazi things because people kept taking pictures of it. So I feel like there's, as we get further from its original use, like it becomes more of just an image and people aren't really as aware of what it means, what it represents. So that's something to contend with.
It's fascinating. I am Jewish. Seeing a swastika makes me swallow my heart into my stomach every time. Like I'll never forget, even when like peacetime in the 90s or whatever it was, and I was a kid and I went to see a production of The Sound of Music, and that, it comes down at the end and I like gasped. I think I will always gasp at the sight of a swastika. I think
what you explained was just exactly what happened in 1966, or actually in Berlin when Cabaret was first presented. Oh, wow. When the Nazi insignia, when the swastika was revealed, there was an audible gasp in the German audience. The MC sings, "If You Could See Her Through My Eyes," and he sings this while dancing with a performer dressed as a gorilla. The final lyric originally was written by Fred Ebb to say, "If you could see her through my eyes, she wouldn't look Jewish at all." Halprin said, you can't do that. You got to change it. And they changed it to, "She wouldn't look Mieskeit at all," which is the Yiddish for ugly. Bob Fosse changed it or restored, "She wouldn't look Jewish at all." And it's been that way since.
But if you could see her. She wouldn't look Jewish at all.
What is it in our way that we look to be able to hear that and not feel, ooh?
No, the point is to feel.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It has to be the gut punch. So like that's not a surprise because the whole number is he's dancing with a gorilla. So then to end it with she wouldn't look Jewish at all, to understand that that's how Germans were looking at Jews at the time.
And now,
To understand that they saw them as bestial, they saw them as less than human, they saw them as gorillas, that they had the right vision, and the rest of us who saw Jews not as gorillas were the ones who were fantasizing and bewitched and looking through rose-colored glasses. I mean, when you say the lyric, the chills come up, and that's Cabaret.
Yeah, it's the most sort of concentrated, part of the show's theme, which is basically, you're watching this man dance with a gorilla, it's all funny, haha, and then, oh, wait, what? Like, this is what we're doing all along? And that's sort of the most concentrated,
And to bring it to 2024, we should feel a gut punch whenever we hear the word vermin said
Every time.
in the political discourse of today. That's what makes this so relevant. The emotional power of Cabaret comes from the subplot of Fraulein Schneider and Herr Schultz. Fraulein Schneider is obviously the owner of the boarding house that Cliff lives in, and Herr Schultz is this grocer with whom she's having a romance. Eric, the film did away with it and replaced it with something that was actually from the original I Am a Camera. But in fact, what did the film lose by deep sixing that subplot?
I gotta tell you, that's my one big quibble with the film. I always think that you have to really be like Cabaret the film, Cabaret the musical. They are so very different.
So different.
They're both genius pieces of work, but they are not each other at all. One of the big reasons is that I do think you lose a bit of the heart of the story because there's something that is so heart-wrenching about these two characters of a certain age, and that one is looking for a second chance at love, and to watch that romance blossom. Also, they have some of the best music.
With time rushing by, what would you do? With the clock running down, what would you do?
What would you do? Is that the question that's posed to the audience in Cabaret? Or do you think that we can divorce ourselves from that?
Oh, absolutely not. And I think one of the things this new production does well is really sort of make a point out of that song.
But it's about to be B.B. Newirth in this one.
Oh yeah.
Thank
True.
you for mentioning
Wow.
that.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you for
And Steven Seagal.
Oh my goodness, yes.
One of the genius of the casting of the original 1966 was Fraulein Schneider being played by Lottie Lenya, who of course had come through, had fled the Nazis in the 1930s. The other song that Fraulein Schneider sings is So What?
So what?
So what? Again, it's that philosophical aspect of I've been through the anarchist, I've been through the communist, I'll be through the Nazis as well.
It's also the juxtaposition of those two songs, right?
Right.
So what? I've lived through all of it. It really, again, it has nothing to do with me. I will continue to soldier on. And this arc of a woman who falls so deeply in love and really like love for love's
For the
sake.
sun will rise and the moon will set, and you learn how to settle for what you get. It will all go on if we're here or not, so who cares? So what? So who cares?
And the placement,
The real damage.
the placement of it right in the beginning is so smart because we barely started the show and we know everything about time and place too. We know exactly what they've been through. This is a country that people have been starving. There's no money. They are, like she said, I once had this, I got this now. It's all I got.
And the other thing is that you have to put us in that mentality because I think whether it's 1966 or 2024, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
We all know that the Nazis do come to power. Like Hitler doesn't become chancellor until 1933. So all of that isn't far in the future for these people. So we have to establish the fact that it's far in the future and give that this is the emotional tone of the city at the time.
Yeah.
Gun to your head, in 100 years, either Chicago or Cabaret can survive. Which would you choose? What would you do, Juan?
This is so tough, but I ultimately do think Chicago might be the stronger show, if only because it is so it is so just like song and dance, and that's what you're getting, and there is a story. I think it's harder to mess up, maybe Chicago, but Cabaret is a better story.
Ruthie?
What I think should, God, you're really making me choose between children that I don't have. I think Cabaret should. I think the stakes are slightly higher. I think the stakes are a little bit higher in Cabaret, at least for me personally. But I think Chicago will, because the idea of fame and celebrity and getting away with murder will always be like a little bit sexier and is even like that much more relevant. But I'm a little less afraid of the dangers of celebrity and a little more afraid of apathy and hate.
Eric?
I long for a world where Cabaret has the higher survival rate. But that really is a reflection of the world we're living at the time, honestly. I think it's a matter of where we are as a people. Can we still take this piece in? And do we want to take this piece in and what it has to offer? Because when you leave Cabaret, you definitely have been gut punched by the show. Chicago's a lot easier on you. And again,
And not to say it's
everyone wants
easy,
15 minutes of
but
fame.
it is easier on you, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Cabaret because I cry at the end of Cabaret every time. And when Cliff says, as he's leaving Berlin, and says, there was a cabaret and there was a master of ceremonies.
And there was a city called Berlin in a country called Germany. And it was the end of the world. And I was dancing with Sally Bowles. And we were both fast asleep.
And Sally Bowles will continue to go on. And that's actually the last, the end of Christopher Isherwood's story. He said, I haven't written the end of Sally Bowles' story, but she will go on wherever she ends up. And thanks to the three of you, we now know why. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to bringing you more fascinating conversations with artists and professionals who live and work only to astonish us. I'm Patrick Pacheco.